Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. My name is Celeste Arrington. I'm the director of the GW Institute for Korean Studies, or GWICS, and a professor in the Political Science Department and here at the Elliott School of International Affairs. It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome you to today's Korea Policy Forum. Our Korea Policy Forums are part of the broader GWICS programming in which we aim to deepen and broaden the discussions that we have here in the Beltway about the Korean Peninsula. And the Korea Policy Forum series in particular tries to tackle very timely policy concerns that relate to the US and South Korean or ROK relationship. And as many of you have seen over the last couple of months, and most recently with the APEC summit and President Trump's visit to Gyeongju in South Korea, AI is at the top, or artificial intelligence is at the top of many policymakers' minds. And so it's my great pleasure today to welcome 4 distinguished speakers, 2 joining us from Korea and 2 joining us here from GW, to be able to discuss some of the complexities of artificial intelligence, its research, its development, funding it, the industrial and governmental applications of it, and the challenges that the US and the ROK together are uniquely well positioned to be able to address in the coming months and years. The Korea Policy Forum is part of our programming funded by the KDI School, a grant from the KDI School in Korea. And the brain behind the Korea Policy Forums is my Associate Director, Yono Kim, from whom you'll hear in a second. But all of the logistics and the organization of today's forum would not be possible without our staff, Ravina and Habin, who are standing behind the pillar back there, and without our student assistants as well outside the room. Today's Korea Policy Forum is also very generously co-sponsored by the Institute for International Science and Technology Policy here at the Elliott School. And so with another brief welcoming remarks, I'm going to turn the floor now over to Nick Van Ortas, who's the director of the IISTP. And he is unfortunately not able to join us in person, so we will be playing a video from him.
Welcome to the Korea Policy Forum, this time co-organized by the Institute for Korean Studies and the Institute for International Science and Technology Policy of the Elliott School. I am the director of the second, the Institute for International Science and Technology Policy. We are very happy to co-sponsor this event with GWICS because this is really a major issue, as everybody knows here. And the current events with Korea publishing its action plan and the US publishing its action plan on artificial intelligence make it very, 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 very topical, very current. The US plan basically calls for zero regulation. It's just about competitiveness of the domestic industry. The Korea plan is a combination of the action for competitiveness of the Korean industry plus regulation. The regulation part is closer to the European AI Act, which makes it interesting. So the Korean Act combines the two. And of course, on the other side, we have the other big power, China, with its own regulatory and action plans for AI. So the discussion, I expect this discussion to be very lively, very good. I wish you good luck. I wish you a very productive discussion. 2 of our professors are there today with you, and both of them have very interesting views of the subject. So good luck, have a productive meeting, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the floor over now to Dr. Yono Kim, who's the Associate Director of GWICS, to moderate our discussion today.
Let me start the panel discussion by briefly introducing the speakers. The first speaker is Susan Ariel Aaronson, a research professor of international affairs at GW. She is also principal investigator with the National Science Foundation and National Institute of Standards and Technology Institute for Trustworthy AI in Law and Society, where she leads research on data and AI governance. Susan is also director of the Digital Trade and Data Governance Hub at GW. The next speaker is Baek. Our Korean speakers are joining from Korea. It's early in the morning, but they were kind enough to agree to join us. Baek is an assistant professor in the Department of Global Culture and Commerce and Dean of Lions College at Hanyang University, Erica campus. He currently serves as a member of the Presidential Committee on National AI Strategy. No wonder he was eager to join us this morning in Korea. Our third speaker is Sangchul Park, Associate Professor at Seoul National University School of Law, jointly appointed at the university's interdisciplinary program in AI. He currently serves as a member of the National AI Strategy Commission of Korea and has advised many other Korean government agencies. Last but not least, joining us today is Carol Kuntz. She teaches on the policy implications of AI at GW and Georgetown University. She also conducts research as an adjunct fellow in the Strategic Technologies program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Previously, she served in the U.S. Department of Defense for more than 3 years. 30 years, 3 decades, I'm sorry. I was thinking about what kind of jokes I should make, but I was out of my idea, but naturally, I made a joke, I think. With that, let's begin with Susan. Susan, I'd like to start by asking about the Trump administration's AI action plan. In your view, do you see potential areas of cooperation with Korea emerging from that plan? I understand you're more interested in governance, but I'd appreciate if you could a little bit explain the potential.
Well, I did a whole PowerPoint about this, but I guess we could bag it. In answering your question, I basically believe that the Biden administration decided that trustworthy AI was a priority, right? And so what does that mean? That means that this technology will not be adopted consistently in a long-term manner if it is not trusted. And in order to get to trust, okay, people have metrics of trust in their own mind, right? So a baby cries and parents go, oh my God, what do I do? Is the baby crying because their diaper needs to be changed? Or is the baby crying because the baby's hungry? And so the baby and parents gradually develop a trust relationship. Now, trust is important in any technology, like a car, but it's ever more important in terms of AI because AI is human-like. And often people can't tell that when they're acting or interacting with AI, they're interacting with a human or a prediction machine. And so it is very important that the technology and the technology's governance is built on trust. Trustworthiness is what a person decides over time in reaction to another person or groups of persons, right? I trust the Democratic Party to do a better job of governing than the Communist Party. I trust that my friends with whom I run will show up on Tuesday nights for our regular track meet. But it's very important that we have that. Unfortunately, the Trump administration said to the rest of the world, trust doesn't really matter that much. But we're going to export the full AI stack. And that's unfortunate, I think, because, again, this is a very controversial technology. Its adoption is extremely rapid, like OpenAI. And next to the iPhone is the second most adopted service in the quickest amount of time. It's also the most downloaded service, even more than TikTok, which is an interesting statistic in itself. So if that relationship is not built on trust, it could cause problems, right? And we're already starting to see those problems. So on October, I think 23rd, but it might have been the 25th, I don't remember the exact date, U.S. and Korea signed a memorandum of understanding. And that memorandum basically said that we're going to work together to export the full AI stack. Okay, but it didn't say much about trust. They said it needs to be trustworthy, but beyond that, they really didn't talk about it. And again, I think that is very important because over time, you want people to trust in the companies producing this product or service, the government that's trying to stimulate the export of it, and the long-term relationships between, let's say, Korea and the United States.
Then let me turn to Soin, joining us from Seoul. Turning to you, could you tell us about Korea's AI vision under the Lee administration? I understand President Lee is very much ambitious about this AI project.
Yes, I would like to say that not only President Lee, but the whole country is very ambitious on AI. And yeah, before I start, it's my great honor to attend this meeting at the right time. And I'd like to share a little bit on the progress on AI action plan. So we already announced several kind of principles of our own AI action plan. So we now have a presidential committee of AI strategy, and we have about more than 10 working group, including infrastructure, talent, and also industry and public service and regional innovation and international cooperation. So basically, we have three pillars. So pillar one is building next generation ecosystem, including the AI highway and next generation AI model and AI talent and also regulation and so on. So our pillar two is nationwide AI infrastructure and transformation. So we're mainly focusing on the AI transformation of our advanced industry, including manufacturing, culture, and healthcare service, and also public service. And at the same time, we're also focusing on the regional innovation. So we currently designing the regional hub. So maybe AI regional hub for manufacturing and also design another one for AI regional hub for science and research. And finally, in pillar three, we are aimed to establishing the global AI basic society and AI initiative. So our concept of the universal AI basic society is quite very much related to AI divide issues. So we are still designing it, but we care very much about the AI divide and how to mitigate those issues by not only from financial support, but also by education and other public service at the same time. And one thing we want to highlight that is our AI strategy is not pursuing of self-sufficient strategy. So all of this pillar is definitely need international cooperation, and United States is definitely one of the most important partner for achieving our AI goal. And yeah, from the APEC, so AI initiative, you already emphasized that we have a lot of we announced a lot of international initiatives on AI initiative. And I think our advantage is definitely the semiconductor leadership and also cultural strength and also healthcare data. So I think healthcare data is one of most attractive point for international big tech to come into Korea for expanding their service and also cooperation. And I think want to highlight our possible cooperation items. I think one of I want to highlight several things. So firstly, I think we can cooperate on AI infrastructure supply chain. So joint investment in data centers and also computing capacity, and also deepen our cooperation between big techs and also Korean chip manufacturers, including Samsung and SK Hynix, for next generation AI model and AI chip. And also finally, we may can work on cooperate on the energy efficient AI facilities and also technology such as um, P, PIM, processing memory thing, technology. And secondly is I also want to highlight that we can collaborate on trustworthy open source ecosystem and standard. So these days, I think kind of biggest challenge for US and Korea and all of the world is the emergence of Chinese open source system. So we also worry about our growing dependency on Chinese open source. So it's free and its performance is better, getting better, and it's also expanding much faster than our expectation. So I think definitely we can cooperate on trustworthy open source system for mitigating those risks. So not only the open source model, but also we can work on our AI safety and ethical guidelines, and also cooperation on our the risk management framework and so on. And we can also cooperate on our advanced industry transformation, as I mentioned earlier. So advanced manufacturing and advanced healthcare, and also defense industry, and finally a culture industry. And probably last one, I think the important point is talent and research cooperation by using AI. So we already have different types of joint AI research labs. We still can enhancing this kind of cooperation, and also we can working on collaborate on our AI for science and science for AI corporations. Okay, I will stop here. Thank you.
Can I just make one point?
Yes.
Building on what he said. Korea likely leads the world in AI-enabled manufacturing, and not only in the number of industrial robots, but in applying AI to manufacturing, which I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sion pointed out reliance on Chinese open source models could be wonderful, but also horrible. In the same way, AI-enabled manufacturing, something for the audience to really think about, because if you think protectionism is bad because of concerns about bringing back manufacturing and outsourcing manufacturing and losing jobs as a result on that, we're talking dark manufacturing where essentially the factory is composed of like 3 mechanics and the rest is all robots. And that is happening very rapidly in South Korea and China, and not so rapidly in the United States. The New York Times has an article about this today, in fact. So South Korea has really been noteworthy on it. The job implications, the protectionism implications are worth us all thinking about.
I think we can discuss this a little bit further during the roundtable. Let me move on to the third topic. Sangchul, I'd like to bring you into the conversation next. I understand that you have something to share with us about the importance of building resilient supply chains and AI innovation ecosystems.
Thank you. Let me attach my presentation material. So basically, as you know very well, the Biden administration's EO 14110 marked Washington's commitment to embedding AI governance within broader national security, economic, and ethical framework. Now, the second Trump administration's AI action plan focuses on reducing bureaucratic barriers, expanding private sector innovation, and accelerating AI deployment across industries, while still emphasizing the importance of collaboration with allies and partners. It clearly focuses on meeting global demand for AI by exporting America's full AI technology stack. Now let's turn to South Korea. So is advancing its own sovereign AI strategy, ambitiously pursuing the goal of AI G3 second third only to the United States and China. To achieve this, Korea has launched the World Best LLM project aimed at developing world-class large language models and plans to release an AI action plan later this month, as Professor Baek already mentioned in more details. Another central pillar of Seoul's strategy is manufacturing AI transformation. Korea aimed to leverage its traditional strengths in manufacturing and semiconductors by embedding AI into production systems, enhancing productivity, automation, and competitiveness. But we will further discuss about some job losses and some other social impact, and other implications. And importantly, these goals are not inconsistent with Washington's full-stack AI export strategy. In fact, both strategies are mutually reinforcing. Korea's AI ambitions will continue to depend on continued access to U.S. state-of-the-art foundation models and core AI technologies. At the same time, Korea's manufacturing and infrastructure capabilities could strengthen the U.S.-led global AI supply chain. In particular, as Korean shipbuilders are actively investing in self-navigating technology, the MESGA, or Make American Shipbuilding Great Again initiative, presents a valuable opportunity to deepen U.S.-Korea collaboration in terms of AI transformation. To expand and deepen cooperation with the United States, Seoul is also pursuing a multifaceted strategy that includes research collaboration initiatives such as the Global AI Frontier Lab based in NIU, led by Professor Yan Kun. I'm also a member of that lab, and attracting research centers from U.S. big techs, although not yet successful, and active participation in the U.S.-led international standardization efforts, and enhancing the interoperability of its regulatory frameworks. And the U.S. and its allies and partners are maintaining a near monopoly across the semiconductor supply chain, the U.S. in families, Taiwan and Korea in foundry, Korea in integrated device manufacturer, or IDM, and the U.S., Japan, and the Netherlands in equipment. The most pressing and immediate issue for Korea is tariff negotiations, and we hope the outcome will turn out to be mutually beneficial. Seoul remains committed to U.S.-led export controls on semiconductor manufacturing. Washington is tightening export control. As Washington prepares new export restrictions on manufacturing subsystems, Seoul will closely monitor development and make necessary adjustments. Frankly, China still remains an important destination for Korea's chip export, although the global supply chain is becoming increasingly bifurcated. Nevertheless, Seoul will make every effort to uphold trust and fulfill its role as a responsible partner in the U.S.-led global supply chain. Washington is advancing major infrastructure investment initiatives, including the Stargate project, the regulation of AI infrastructure, and the strengthening of export controls. In parallel, Seoul is promoting the establishment of a national AI computing center to build an AI highway. Cooperation in infrastructure should also be further expanded to support and deepen supply chain participation in AI and semiconductor sectors as well. Good news is that NVIDIA is planning to supply 26,000 state-of-the-art chips, including GB200 Grace Blackwell and RTX 6000 to major tech companies in Seoul. Washington is considering restricting the export of Blackwell, but this will not be targeted at allies and partners, we believe. To operate 26,000 NVIDIA chips, we must ensure a stable and sufficient power supply, making energy cooperation with the United States another important agenda item. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Carol, I think based on your decades-long DoD background, you're going to present something about the U.S. and the ROK defense cooperation based on AI technology.
To do was to share with the group some of the findings from a study I published this summer on artificial intelligence and war. But I first wanted to express my appreciation for this opportunity to meet with our friends and allies from South Korea. So I'm very pleased to have been included. So thank you very much. I think that my report really entered into a larger debate that's occurring within the artificial intelligence community, if you will. There was an article, two Princeton computer scientists published an article in August that said that sort of tried to set themselves apart from the view of many others in the artificial intelligence world by arguing that AI was what they called a normal technology. And they did not mean by this that it wasn't going to be quite transformative. But what they were arguing is that it would be something more analogous to other general purpose technologies, perhaps like electricity. Some of you may have looked at the history of the incorporation of electricity, but it's something that played out over several decades. The really profound implications of electricity occurred after there was a reconfiguration of supply chains, of the design of manufacturing plants, after the roads were built for cars as opposed to horses. So it was, as we look around our world today, electricity obviously was a profoundly transformative technology, but it didn't happen overnight. It took some time. And they were arguing that AI would be transformative, but would be normal in the sense that it would roll out over time and would require significant domain expertise, that you couldn't just roll it into a factory and it would automatically change it. You needed to have some subject matter experts or domain experts to help you think about how to incorporate electricity to reconfigure the factory to have a big impact. The other view, if I can, is sort of a little bit the view of the hyperscalers, the big companies, and this is a little bit of a caricature, but there does seem to be on the other end of the continuum. On the one side, this sort of normal will be transformative, but domain expertise will have to be incorporated and it'll roll out over decades. At the other end of this continuum, if you will, you have a little bit of the sort of view that AI is going to be something, if you'll forgive me, like a sort of technological tsunami. It's just going to flood into every crevice in the workplace, in the home, in the schoolhouse. And it's going to completely fill that space. So I think my report aligns very strongly with the normal end of the continuum. I do think AI will be transformative. I suspect each of you share that view. But I also believe, and I strive to motivate the argument, that domain expertise, that the tacit knowledge, the idiosyncratic characteristic of how different events present themselves on the ground will need to be incorporated in a systematic and carefully measured fashion to assure we maximize the benefits of this remarkable technology and we minimize its risk. One of the things, I teach an overview class on artificial intelligence here at the Elliott School, and one of the words I make there is that I do think there's sort of a classic set of errors that occur with artificial intelligence algorithms. Again, it's a remarkable technology. And if you have an error and perhaps a movie is recommended to you or a good is recommended to you to purchase and you're not interested in it, that's not going to have terrible consequences. But if you have that same phenomenon of false positives, if you will, in a wartime context, obviously the consequences can be extraordinarily and unacceptably high. And so I do think that these classic set of errors that occur, they occur with different frequency in different subject matter domains, and they certainly occur with different consequences in different subject matter domains. And I also would note that I think this sort of set of errors that occur commonly are not going to be entirely static. Nothing characterizes AI more than its constant and remarkable rate of change. And so I do think that the technology sector will solve some of these problems. But the experience, at least heretofore, has been that in the solving of them, some other error is also created. So I do think this phenomenon of consistent suite of errors that will have to be managed, measured, mitigated, and ideally eliminated largely through the interaction of subject matter or domain expertise will be an essential component as this AI largely moves out of the recommendation algorithm business and into more real life applications like, heaven forbid, warfare. So one of the things I talk about in my report is that there are three principal places or categories where algorithms can have mistakes. The first is in the mechanism of the algorithm. As some of you may know, there's sort of a small toolbox of algorithm, and they have different strengths, which are really quite remarkable, but they are also vulnerable to different weaknesses. I talk a lot in my report about how generative AI, which is really sort of the beating heart of the most recent of advancement, is just extraordinary, but it does have an irreducible vulnerability to random errors. And again, in a recommendation algorithm, that's fine. In writing a poem in the style of E.E. Cummings for your mom's birthday, that's fine. In a targeting algorithm, not so fine. So I think this generative AI, as I argue in my report, probably I argue should not be used for final targeting and firing decisions in the context of war. And as a more general proposition, there should be a presumption against its use in safety critical function. And so I think the mechanism of the algorithm is a place where you have errors, and there are other examples. You have strengths, you have weaknesses, and the domain experts need to be involved in the dialogue about those weaknesses. The second major category that causes errors is in the training database. As you know, the kind of AI that's out in the world today is all machine learning. And what that means is that it studies a training database with great care and uses that study to devise the algorithm. So there's a variety of ways in which the training database can just not be accurate for a variety of reasons. One reason is something called poison data, where an adversary purposefully uses their understanding of how an algorithm works to slightly alter the data to cause your algorithm to generate the wrong response. I think in war, perhaps obviously, we need to anticipate adversaries doing this quite purposefully to cause errors of various sorts. Folks in the finance sector report that they wake up every morning to sort of a new round of poison data attacks, trying to get them to send money or cause other financial errors. So the second category where we consistently see that can be a source of errors is the training database. I've given you one example of that. The final of the three categories that I think you can consistently see causing errors as algorithms are used out in the real world is in the user's interpretation of the result. There's several of these types of errors that can occur. The one that I think is of greatest concern in the defense context is something called automation bias, where does this sound anything like warfare to you? A high pressure, time sensitive context where a very quantitative process has yielded an answer. There's a lot of research that shows that humans unlikely, there's a very high threshold for the human not to accept that answer and move forward. So I think in a wartime context, we have to be very sensitive to this risk. So fundamentally, my report looked at AI, again, in the context of war, a very high consequence use case. But fundamentally, it's in this larger argument about, is AI a normal technology that will be transformative, but will have to flow out in a slower way and require a significant amount of systematic, well-considered, structured interaction between AI experts and subject matter experts? Or will it be more like this, what I refer to as a technological tsunami, just rushing in and shoving all the furniture, into a muddy patch? So my report aligns very strongly with the view that domain expertise will be essential, and we need to move in a thoughtful way to facilitate that interaction to manage, reduce these risk of errors.
Do you want to mention any opportunities, not only risk and vulnerabilities? We do have a couple of more minutes, so if you want to cover that.
As you mentioned, I spent a career in the U.S. Department of Defense and in the White House. And, if the AI works as posited, it would yield remarkable and quite meaningful wartime or war fighting capabilities. And frankly, particularly in, perhaps this will sound familiar to a Korean audience, particularly in context where there's very little territory separating two potential conventional adversaries. But I will say, I as a defense professional, am deeply concerned when I read things that the defense community is writing about AI, that there is, sometimes I say there's sort of too much of a perspective of, if you will, 2 pounds of AI is twice as good as 1 pound of AI. It's like, more is better. But I really, as I study AI, and again, I teach an overview class on artificial intelligence now. So we study it in autonomous cars and leasing and mortgage rates and all kinds of applications. And it is a remarkable technology, but in my own view, it is quite vulnerable to errors. And so, 2 pounds of AI probably is not going to be twice as good as 1 pound of AI. You're going to have to think in a very careful, sophisticated way about individual use cases. And I also think I would urge a lot of smart young people to think about how to structure this interaction between AI experts and subject matter experts. Because right now, AI is complicated. It's not impenetrable, though. And I really believe it is essential that folks with subject matter expertise, I always try to charge my students to feel responsibility, to learn enough of the vocabulary, learn enough of the basic concepts, that when they encounter AI, hey, let's use it for this function, when they're newly hired and working in a new organization, hey, let's use AI. I really do not want them to be afraid to say, okay, great, highfalutin contractor with the high quality suits, let's sit down. I can understand this. Just accept that you as a subject matter, as a domain expert, can understand it. Get that contractor to sit down and walk you through which algorithm are they using. Is it reinforcement learning, which has a risk of alignment problems? How do they manage that? What's the training database? How relevant is the training database to the thing you're actually using in the field? I mean, AI is a great technology, but it is not, as, if you'll forgive me a DoD phrase, it is not a sort of fire and forget technology. It's like work the details. It's a terrific technology. It would have remarkable benefits. But I think my own view is, and what I try to impart to my students is, every professional, every subject matter. I mean, please excuse me for getting into teacher mode. You know, you're going to have responsibility to not just say, oh yeah, if it's an AI algorithm, just implement it in my domain. Everybody's going to have to dig into it. And I do think those of us who try to work at this intersection of AI and subject matter expertise need to really work systematically. There's dashboards, there are decision tools. There are ways to structure the bringing together of relevant insights across these two domains. And I think that's a critical mission for all of us who care in this day and age.
Thank you. I think we covered many keywords from diverse perspectives, ranging from national ambitions, potential partnership between the U.S. and Korea, trust, the importance of trust relationship, and the risk and vulnerabilities. Before I open it up for a roundtable discussion, I'd like to remind the virtual participants that the Q&A box is already open and you can type in your questions in advance. Please identify your name and affiliation when you type in questions. So I'd like to encourage you to make comments on each other's presentation and ask questions if you have any. But while you are streamlining your thoughts, let me ask this simple question. Recently, Jensen Huang, the chairman of NVIDIA, he had fried chicken and beer, chimek in Korean, with the chairman of Samsung Group and Hyundai Motors company. Do you think that event, actually, what was it, Seoul or Gyeongju? But anyway, do you think that symbolizes some potentials for the US and Korea, at least at the private sector level, to overcome any barriers to the bilateral partnership, like trust or US export control or supply chain, etc.? What's your take on that?
I would presume that Jensen Huang's firm, NVIDIA, will have competitive advantage in the next 5 years. I'd look very closely at what Amazon Web Services is doing in terms of creating its own chips. And I just don't think we really understand where this technology is going. Carol made some really important points. The problem that I heard with what you said is that there's very little data about data. I read technical reports all the time and compare companies' approaches to it. And so we know even, the most open source model, which by the way is DeepSeek, as Professor Sung-Hai Park talked about, an open source model that has become the first almost completely transparent. They were not fully transparent of where they got their data. And so you can't discern if the data set is accurate, complete, and representative. So we don't have the information yet to do the due diligence that you talked about.
Well, DoD is probably an exception on that.
I think it's almost impossible to do that. Believe me, I have colleagues that have tried. This is one of the reasons why it's very difficult to ascertain how to govern AI. So I can't answer your question per se. I do think that the United States has a lot to learn from Korean companies and vice versa. And it is good that we are in partnership. But I think we are in a dilemma globally. AI is a global product and service. AI is built on global expertise, historical, web scraped, history of ideas, right? People trained in the United States, people trained in Korea, people trained in around the world. It is also a global public good. And one thing that really upsets me is how little we talk about that. We talk about its impact on science, but not about its potential impact to help mitigate problems that have transcended generations. A good one might be pandemics or climate change. And so that we need to find ways to cooperate. And I am worried that the focus of this administration has been bilateral, when we're not going to be able to succeed by piling on 192 countries, of which this administration is likely to get 47. I've made up that number. My point here being is that we really need to find ways to find common ground on the governance of both the data underpinning the service and the service itself. May I give you an example why? So OpenAI last week did a study of its users, and they found a significant number or significant percentage, less than 10%, but still significant, were asking questions of the chatbots related to their mental health. Now, people using ChatGPT in Korea has different laws regarding therapy. Okay, it is a service that is transcending borders. We need to find common ground over whether ChatGPT should, or OpenAI should be allowed to produce that service in the United States and Korea. Okay, we have no rules governing that. We have no rules governing the data sets and the free flow of data. We have at the national level various restrictions. We do not allow China, even though it hacks tons of our data, and probably vice versa, we don't allow data brokers to sell certain types of personal data to China and other alleged terrorist nations. We need to find common ground on that. Why? Because lots of personal data is important for us to make progress in other fields, such as various forms of healthcare. So I'm really worried about this focus. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like this, that it's bad. It's good that China and Korea can find, the United States and Korea can find common ground. But as the colleague suggested, we're not talking about what do we do about open source AI and it potentially being dumped? What are we going to do about too much AI? I do a lot of work on AI overcapacity, which is very different from a bubble in AI, right? Too much investment is very different from too much production. So we're not having these discussions. How to regulate AI use at NATO. I'm sure there are lots of talks, okay? But how various countries use AI to deal with disinformation, we don't have any consensus. Until we can do that, AI's growth and governance will be problematic.
Harold, do you have any comments?
Well, I would really underscore, the point that I do believe we've got to get sort of everybody talking about AI. Not because it's going to solve everybody's problem, but it's going to be everybody's problem if we don't benefit from many different insights. And a lot of these, I confessed, I think when we were talking before the panel, that I've learned a lot about AI. I know a lot of technical details, but it's really one of those issues where the more I learn, the greater sophistication I can frame a lot of hard questions with greater sophistication, but I actually don't have answers to a lot of those questions. So I think we've just got to get a larger discussion to figure some of these things out.
Thank you. I think either Sangchul or Soin may have answers to my question.
Yeah. Let me advance. For your question, I think I do agree with you that private collaboration will continue to play a very crucial role in maintaining alliance and then supply chain participation. And currently the global supply chain is really intertwined and very complicated. NVIDIA is not only a major supplier, but also a major demander. So Korea definitely is in need of state-of-the-art GPU and chips of NVIDIA to realize its AI highway initiative. But altogether, Korea supplies HBM or high bandwidth memory to NVIDIA. So so both are very beneficial to each other. and it will lay a very solid foundation for cooperations. And regarding Carol's point about domain expert role, I definitely agree that the role of domain experts is very crucial, and I do agree that context-specific approaches that start from actual use cases instead of abstract silver bullet principles or some, and on the bottom-up basis represent the most rational approach in AI. Beyond addressing risks and challenges, they are very essential in building dynamic data pipelines that will support the development of agentic AI and drive broader AI transformation. Yeah, that's it.
Soin, do you have any comments?
Yes, on your question, I think yes, definitely. Not only NVIDIA, but also Amazon and OpenAI, they announced a lot of the partnership with Korean partners that shows the relationship between U.S. companies and Korean companies is very complementary. So in case of NVIDIA, definitely their next destination is physical AI, and the final goal destination is world model. So that's why he had a meeting with Samsung, one of the world's biggest electronics companies, and also Hyundai, which is good at automobile and robotics. And also in case of OpenAI, the reason why OpenAI is so active in Korea for cooperation is I think we have a very big users and also in public service and also a huge potential in healthcare service again. And on the other issues raised by Susan and Carol, I think again the importance of domain knowledge and expertise is extremely important in Korea as well. So not only public, private sectors, but in research and scientific research, we already realized that the large language model and foundation model is not that efficient in most of the sectors. So we should be careful, and also we have a lot more experience and testing knowledge of using AI. And I totally agree with the transparent and risk and safety issues, but this area is definitely could be a very important point for cooperation. We need to think about it a little more deeply. And I think we'll highlight one more thing is we need to talk about the energy, the clean energy more in using of AI. So we have a lot of plan of using import several thousand of maybe in the future million of GPU, but we don't have actually a feasible plan for providing clean energy. Yeah.
Thank you. Speaking of energy, I mean, not only energy, but data centers, it requires huge amount of investment. And I think either Sangchul or Soin suggested that South Korea is interested in investing in data center construction because they promised to President Trump that they will invest huge amount of money in the United States. So do you envision very active cooperation, bilateral cooperation on the data center construction or like energy required for AI?
Succeed if we don't have that kind of cooperation. But that said, I mean, as I listen to this discussion, I'm really kind of worried about it because the discussion is all about the business opportunities here, but it's not about. I'm sorry, I think I'm coming across as a little bit arrogant, but as someone who teaches students, I want students to say, when they're thinking about this new technology, which is being adopted so rapidly, at the same time, there are such huge risks to democracy and to human rights. So when you talk to me about the cost, business deals, I'm working at the level of trying to understand how can I incentivize companies to think about the risks here to individuals and society as a whole. And let me give you one example, okay? Again, I'm going to refer to chatbots. And I'm bringing this up because we're not discussing these things. And this is going to be as true in Korea, a country whose democracy was recently tested, and the United States. But so here's the deal. There is no democracy without empathy, right? In order to make compromises, you have to understand that the other position is worthy of your consideration and worthy of your investment, right? So you have to believe that compromise is useful and possible. And there is no democracy without compromise. But if individuals are constantly talking to chatbots and not with other human beings, it's very hard for them to learn empathy. Chatbots can be empathetic, and certainly chatbots are not the only form of AI. But I am really worried about this when I see my own students who lack writing skills, who lack social skills. It's frightening. I gave a talk for GW in New York a couple of weeks ago, and this guy who is managing partner at a law firm said his law students who have graduated, his associates who have graduated very prestigious law schools cannot write. And they don't have the critical thinking skills in order to assess whether or not a chatbot has given them accurate information or incomplete information. So that's what I'm worried about. It's not to say that the deals between Korea and the United States aren't important, but I want to see Korea remain a democracy. Same for the United States. And so this is what I'm worried about. I'm sorry.
I do think AI is a transformative technology. I will say I have changed the way I give tests in my class. For example, I mean, I think in each context you have to think about AI and its implications. So I did not think this was a radical pedagogical innovation, but I do in-class, blue book, midterms, and finals, because I both know how good the chatbots would be at writing papers, and I also know how poor the so-called AI detectors are. So I have altered how I assess and incentivize and teach my class. And so I think in every domain, we need to be thinking about the implications of AI. But on the other hand, it does hold remarkable benefits. So I think that's why we have to, infuse young people with the sense that regardless of what they formally are an expert on, that they should not just blindly use AI. They should be armed with critical thinking skills with regard to AI use. Does it make sense in this use case? Is there going to be bias of some sort? Is there an alignment problem? Is there? And I am.
Carl, you might want to explain what an alignment problem is, because people may not know.
Well, there are, an alignment problem would be another example of a vulnerability in the mechanism of an AI algorithm. So a very powerful type of AI algorithm would be an AI agent that would pursue an optimal strategy to achieve the goal the human specified for them. And that is like terrific, because finding the best flight to Boston to visit my son is kind of a pain. And so if I can ask a chatbot to, this time I want to travel up to Boston, find me the best price, that would be a terrific service. On the other hand, if you're going to say, go kill members of the other military, and you're not careful about it, that is positively dystopian. Now, probably the most famous example of this that's used a lot in various literature is we're running a paperclip factory. And so we buy a robot and we say, go make paperclips. Very reasonable thing to do. But the problem is we go off and work elsewhere in the factory and we don't realize that the robot has used up all the raw materials to make the paperclips. And since all we told it was make paperclips, having used up all the raw materials, it does what, if you're a robot, a paperclip making robot seems like a reasonable thing to do. It's now out in the parking lot pulling the bumpers off of all of the cars to make more paperclips. So so that would be an alignment problem where the human specification of the goal for this goal optimization algorithm was not specified with sufficient precision or specific clarity, or wasn't updated. And you can imagine much more grave problems than everybody's bumper getting ripped off their car. Now, there are technical ideas about how to manage these alignment problems, which include building in deference so that my robot would come back to me and say, well, now it's lunchtime and I've used up all the raw materials, but I'm going to go to the parking lot. And you can say, no, please wait until the next shipment of raw materials comes in. Or you can put in limit, like in a wartime context, heaven forbid, if one were to use this, you might specify very narrow geographic or chronological limits. So, again, it's, there is a dialogue on how to manage these problems, but these alignment problems become much more worrisome as the AI agents become more creative, more powerful, and more interconnected through the World Wide Web. And now, as we're talking about AI agents that are using foundation models or these sort of marquee models like ChatGPT or Claude Anthropic, it becomes quite worrisome. And so it's another example of how we need to kind of make sure we're building in interfaces where, users of AI algorithms are sensitive or limited in how they define the goal so as to avoid this very grave vulnerability.
Thank you. Seoin and Sangchul, do you have any comments?
Oh, yeah. I do share a concern about empathy, compromise, and democracy with Suzanne. And well, U.S.-Korea alliance is not merely based on economic cooperation, but also, sharing common value and belief in democracy and liberalism. And we should also, cooperate to confront the spread of authoritarianism over the world. And so for that specific reason, we should, be deeply interested in how AI affects and sometimes undermines democracy and our common value. Especially, AI can impair democracy in two ways. First, certain selective exposure of people to different media can lead to filter bubble or information diets or some kind of biased assimilation. So it will eventually lead to political polarization, and then can provide a basis for extreme thought or ideas. And another concern is the potential manipulation of public opinions by generative AI. So these phenomena are not limited to nationwide, and we definitely need cross-border cooperation to jointly cope with this threat. That's it.
Yeah, on the maybe risk and dark side of AI, in Korea, I agree with the chatbot and empathy issues, and also misinformation and the military issues. These are the important issues. But to be honestly, I think we don't really talk very much on military use things, and we have some experience, and now we're concerning about the chatbot ethics and also misinformation, disinformation. These issues are important, but also I think Lee administration, to be honestly, is more focusing on how to utilize it. So more focus on innovation. So we definitely need a balance, and also have to carry about the social impact. That's why we have a society working group in our AI action planning group. So even inside the committee, we have some kind of constructive conflict on the AI issues. So they are actually the society working group. They are very much care about the individual, the freedom, and also protection of their personal data. A lot of the things are ongoing. And for Dr. Yeonho Kim's question on energy, I would like to quite quickly want to add the answer to that. I think SMR, next generation of nuclear the reactor, I think definitely one of the promising sectors, and maybe some equipment, photovoltaics. I think that can that's also the promising items for U.S. Korea cooperation, and maybe the grid technology or co-development of more energy efficient algorithm. This going to be a good items for corporations. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let me open it up for a Q&A. We have a question from Yu Chang, and this question is basically addressed to Carol, I think. But I would welcome other, the speakers to jump in if you have any answers to that. The question is, this cooperation in AI-driven defense technologies can strengthen both nations, meaning U.S. and South Korea's security capabilities, particularly in addressing threats from adversaries like North Korea. How can U.S. Department of War resolve diverging approaches to AI regulation and data privacy complicating joint initiative? The U.S. is relatively open data policies, contrast with South Korea's stricter data protection laws mixed with geopolitical tensions.
I think that's a terrific question, and I think the United States Department of Defense, and I apologize, I can't change acronyms as quickly as the government can. It's just the habits are too deeply ingrained. But I think the Department of Defense, in my experience, always benefited greatly from the caliber of its friends and allies. I know when I worked at NATO or with some of our Asian allies, I always benefited from their terrific insights and questions. So I think that in the context of that bilateral defense relationship, some really terrific work could be done to help identify the kinds of questions and information that needs to be made available to warfighters in the field and also decision makers in a command center or in the United States in the Situation Room to enable the responsible and effective use of artificial intelligence. Not only would you have the potential sources of errors of AI, but you also, you do obviously have a potential for language problems. And so it becomes even more important to have great clarity about what the actual information is. One of the things that I have really tried to underscore in my work is that I think you're going to need some, sort of different kinds of tools, both AI tools and sort of tools to identify, measure, and mitigate problems in the AI tools. there'll be sort of one kind of tool needed for people in the field, if you will, for a soldier behind a bush targeting a particular kind of tank. But then you're going to need more predictive tools for decision makers. Someone in the Blue House or the White House who would need to be able to assess the accuracy of algorithms in a prospective war. So before a decision was made to authorize the use of any algorithms in a war. And that's going to be very different kinds of tools. I don't know that the data sharing in a military context is going to be as difficult. Certainly in a life sciences or the medical context, there are a lot of differences between national. I think in the military context, much of the data, and I acknowledge the important caveat you made, but I think much of the data is going to be classified, and there will be there are already well established modes for handling the relevant data in that context.
Yeah. Regarding data protection law, actually, Korea do have a framework based on European GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, but it is discrepant from US at the federal level, but not necessarily with the state level. So, for example, California CPLA has a very similar framework with Korean law, and they are also somewhat GDPR based, but even under our AI Framework Act, which is scheduled to take effect on January 22 next year, they have a very clear ground for exempting military affairs from the application of the law. So maybe, based on that, provision, we can, have a relatively free flow regarding the military issues with the United States, and it will greatly help us maintain interoperability with U.S. Strategic resources and maintain our capabilities to jointly cope with our common enemies. And especially for data protection laws, the current government is making many efforts to lift very onerous regulations and liberate some youth that can contribute to the public benefit and some for a national interest. So there will be a lot of progress, I expect. That's it.
Thank you. Let me take questions from the audience in the room.
Hi, my name is John, and I go to GW. I'm here at Ariel School, and I have like two sets of questions like combined. First part is like both countries, their government's interest highly lies in the AI sector, and also when NVIDIA promised to give like 260,000 GPU to the Korea, it was to Korean government and the private sector. What should be like the role of government? Because like the Korean government tend to be more want to play more bigger part in creating Korea as like a strong AI nation, and I don't know, like, what do you guys think about the balance between the private sector and the government and the role of AI? And also, do you guys think that the government's strong policy kind of increases the chance of AI becoming the technological tsunami that you mentioned? And in some cases, I already think that AI is already kind of like a technological tsunami. And when I listen to a lot of the people who are experts of AI, they pose a lot of worries about AI, yet market's not gonna wait for all those policies to be implemented. So do you guys think that those flood of AI technology is like somewhat inevitable, or do you think there could be some kind of things that the policymaker could do or should do?
So you talked about whether or not the government should invest in providing infrastructure. And the fact is that these are digital public goods. So the US and Korea have provided infrastructure such as the internet, right, where the services are provided by private companies, but the backbone itself, the basic research, et cetera. Data is also considered a digital public good, especially when the data set is provided by the government. Do I think government should provide that? Yes. If you want to have good AI, then you want to have the most accurate, complete, and representative data sets. In order to get to that, you need to have data sharing, which we didn't talk about, and the free flow of data, while you also simultaneously protect personal data, copyrighted data, et cetera. So that's a long discussion. I won't hoard the floor. But government plays a role in building trust when firms don't hate regulations. Larger firms can more easily amortize it. Governance provides certainty, and the governments that have clear rules regarding business practices, regarding how AI is designed, developed, and deployed, are the governments that are likely to have active AI and AI application sectors such as XR. So Korea, with its data dam and clear rules on personal data, actually has a comparative advantage. Its firms know how to operate in a governance middle ground heavy environment, but also that environment supports innovation.
Yeah, quickly to answer one of the questions among 17. So I think just on your first question, so what is the role of the government on the NVIDIA's 260,000 chip? I think I just want to highlight one thing is the allocation. So based on the NVIDIA's plan, so among 260,000 GPU is almost go to conglomerates, big companies. So next step, what Korea government should do is how to allocate the public portion of GPU to SMEs. So it's too much focus to Samsung and Hyundai and SKT. So maybe they are benefiting a lot from this deal, but the other, the other SMEs and middle-sized companies or startups, they maybe have some difficulties. So I think the main role of government should focus on the allocation of GPU. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tech Kim. I am a freshman here at the GW Elliott School of International Affairs. This question is directed more for you, Dr. Aaronson. And I'm very, I guess, glad by the fact that you brought up the topic of trust in artificial intelligence. And I think, unfortunately, right now, as of, I guess, looking at different companies domestically, I think trust is one of the things that I guess these companies are struggling to address to the public. And so in a two-part question for you, Dr. Aaronson, how can these companies better address the topic of trust when it comes to artificial intelligence? And how can we build a U.S. ROK alliance on AI that's more strong on trust?
Okay, regarding the U.S. ROK alliance on trust, I'm sorry, I have to go very soon, but I would say greater transparency and more participation is one way. The problem is, if you were to look at my research, you'll see I've done a lot of studies about how do governments involve their publics. That's very different from how companies can involve their public. But this weekend, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, and about 5 other companies are having an invite-only event for experts to observe work that they're doing in India and the United States regarding public participation related to their chatbots. My problem with this is I'm going to watch it. We'll see what happens. It's an attempt to build trust by these companies, to have a shared model. That's a good thing. But do they really listen and change their product? That's the key. And that is also the key in terms of governance of AI, right? So we've seen the EU change its AI Act to respond to concerns about this is going to stifle innovation. Trust is really hard to obtain, right? and it's hard to sustain. It's easy to break trust and lose it. And so I don't have any good answers for you. I wish I did. Then the Trustworthy AI Institute, NSF, and NIST wouldn't have to fund us. But we're trying very hard to find an answer to that question. So I apologize that we don't have it yet. You have metrics of trust and trustworthiness, but trust, it's really hard to understand.
I totally agree. Let me take one last question from this side.
Hi, my name is Sangchul. I'm a business scholar here in GW. My question is very simple. How sovereign AI concept can go with the bilateral cooperation between Korea and the United States?
Yeah. Can you repeat or summarize your question?
Sorry. Again, I think this question is proper for the Korean panels. My question is how sovereign AI concept can go with the current bilateral cooperation between United States and Korea?
Sovereign and bilateral cooperation. Sangchul.
It's a little bit trick question, but sovereign AI concept is still need to be better defined, and in some aspect it might mean the reflection of some diverse cultural idea and based on diverse data set, or in other aspect it could mean technically the construction and use of on-premise AI models that can be used for very sensitive data and sensitive purposes involving national security or some other areas. But regardless of whether they can be aligned with some global cooperation or not, it's very evident that even a sovereign AI strategy cannot be realized without our continued access to American state-of-the-art core models and foundation models and core technology. So we do understand it, and probably for particularly AI transformation of the manufacturing industry, where we have competitive edges, probably we can rely more on sovereign AI. But eventually, the core model itself should be based on a close collaboration with the U.S. So to ensure such collaboration, we will continue to try to make our system more interoperable with the United States, and will enlarge our cooperation in many aspects. So I would like to stress that that will not be necessarily misaligned with U.S. especially U.S. full stack AI strategy.
Do you think some of the recent technical innovations have facilitated other economies than the U.S. and China? I think they should pursue some elements that are national and while maintaining cooperation. But I think recent technical advances have made it a more viable strategy.
Before I wrap it up, I'd like to thank all the distinguished speakers for joining us today, especially Sangchul and Seoin for staying up late at night. I hope you will get good night's sleep if it's not too late. And thank you all for joining us today. With that, let me conclude today's event. Thank you.